Welcome back to History by Lynny. In this video, I'll be sharing my top 7 places to visit in Florence that will get you closer to the powerful Medici family. Let's kick off the tour with the Basilica of San Lorenzo, the parish church of the Medici family. One of the oldest churches in Florence and one of the largest, it held the title of Duomo for 300 years. The church was consecrated in 393, then rebuilt in 1059, and rebuilt once again in 1419 when Giovanni di Bicci de' Medici financed the replacement of the 11th century church. He commissioned Filippo Brunelleschi to design the building. Giovanni was the founder of the Medici Bank and initiated the family's rise to power in Florence. The new building of the church was completed in 1470 after Giovanni's death. When you walk inside the basilica, you'll be greeted by gray stone columns and arches and a white ceiling above decorated with gilded rosettes along with Medici crests. Much of the artwork inside was paid for by the Medici family. You'll see works by artists such as Donatello, a close friend of Cosimo de' Medici, Filippo Lippi, and Bronzino. While here, you can also visit the Lorenziana Library, which is home to over 3,000 manuscripts collected by the Medici family, the Canon's Cloister, a beautiful outdoor green space, and the cellar or crypt, which is a must-see. Upon entering the cellar, you will see an area called the St. Lawrence Treasure. Here, you'll find a collection of the basilica's reliquaries, but inside the cellar, you'll find Donatello's final resting place, which is not far from his very good friend Cosimo de' Medici's tomb. Cosimo de' Medici was the son of Giovanni de' Medici and was instrumental in establishing the family as rulers of Florence. His large marble sarcophagus sits behind a wrought iron gate and underneath a huge pillar. The pillar sits below the altar of the church, signifying his role as the pillar of the Medici family and of the church. From inside the church, you'll be able to see the large inlaid marble and bronze floor, indicating where the tomb lies below. My second spot on the list are the Medici Chapels. The Medici Chapels are just next to the Basilica of San Lorenzo, the burial place of many of the Medici family members. In 1520, Cardinal Giulio de' Medici wished to build a proper mausoleum to glorify some of his ancestors. Here you'll find 3 main rooms: the crypt, the chapel of the princes, and the new sacristy. You first enter at the crypt, where minor members of the family are buried, and then you make your way up to the Chapel of the Princes, where 6 of the Medici Grand Dukes are buried. This incredible room features a huge dome which was begun in 1604. Octagonal in shape, the room is covered in marble and semi-precious stones, has 6 niches with the sarcophagi of the dukes, as well as some bronze statues. The room took several centuries to complete due to the difficulty of obtaining the rare materials. The third and final room is the new sacristy, built in 1524. In this room, you'll find the tombs of Lorenzo the Magnificent and his brother Giuliano, as well as the tombs of Lorenzo the Duke of Urbino and Giuliano the Duke of Nemours. The room was designed by Michelangelo, and he worked on the statues and sarcophagi until 1533. My third place to visit is the Palazzo Medici Riccardi, the first palace of the Medici, where Cosimo and Lorenzo the Magnificent lived along with their families. This palatial family residence was commissioned in 1444 by Cosimo and was the official residence of the Medici family until 1540, when Cosimo, the Duke of Florence, decided to move. The building was in the family's possession until it was sold by Ferdinand de' Medici in 1659. The building had several renovations in its later years, but was eventually restored to showcase the original feature of the building. Inside, you'll see the impressive Chapel of the Magi, frescoed in 1459. Each wall contains depictions of the journey of the Magi towards Christ, and joining in on the journey, you'll find Cosimo and Piero de' Medici, the young Lorenzo and Giuliano, Gian Galeazzo Sforza, and other famous figures. My next must place to visit is Palazzo Vecchio. You won't miss this beautiful building in the center of the city. Built in 1299, the building was originally home to the ruling body of Florence, and in 1540, Duke Cosimo moved from Palazzo Medici to Palazzo Vecchio. Inside, you'll find 3 courtyards: the Grand Salone dei Cinquecento, or the Hall of 500, which was commissioned by Girolamo Savonarola and features large and expansive frescoes on its walls. The Studiolo of Francesco, where you'll find portraits of Cosimo and Eleonora de' Medici, painted by Agnolo Bronzino. And on the second floor, you'll walk through the apartments of Eleonora de' Medici, Duchess of Florence. The apartment section includes her bedchamber, chapel, dining room, and the room for Eleonora's ladies in waiting. Keep an eye out for her name painted on the ceiling of one of the rooms in her apartments. If you're able, be sure to make your way up to the tower to see where the prisoners were kept, Cosimo the Elder being one of those among them, and for what I think is one of the best views in Florence. Our fifth place to visit on this Medici tour is the Uffizi Gallery, located just across from the Palazzo Vecchio. Now, one of the largest and most important art museums in the world, it was once home to the offices of Cosimo I de' Medici, Duke of Florence. Construction of the building began in 1560 and was completed in 1581. The top floor of the building was originally a gallery made to hold Roman sculptures owned by the Medici family. As you walk through the museum now, you'll find many artworks owned by the family, as well as many of their famous portraits. And not only will you walk amongst works owned by the family, but works created by many of the great artists they were patrons to, such as Botticelli, Michelangelo, and Raphael. As you make your way through the museum, be sure to look up at the ceiling, and you may spot several different Medici family members. Also, don't forget to make your way downstairs to see some of my favorite Medici portraits by Agnolo Bronzino. From one gallery to another, our next spot is the Palazzo Pitti. Palazzo Pitti was home to Duke Cosimo de' Medici and his wife Eleanor of Toledo after he purchased it in 1550. The palace is now the largest museum complex in Florence and is divided into 5 museums. This includes the Palatine Gallery and Imperial and Royal Apartments on the first floor, as well as the Museum of Costume and Fashion on the second floor. At the Museum of Costume, you'll find the burial clothing of the Duke and Duchess of Florence, as well as their sons' clothing. And in the gallery and apartments, you'll find portraits of their daughters like Isabella and Lucrezia. Pitti Palace is also home to the Boboli Gardens. This huge garden was laid out by the Medici family specifically for Duchess Eleonora, creating the Italian garden style that became the model for many European courts. Throughout the 11 acres, you'll find grottos, an amphitheater, fountains, sculptures, orange groves, and even an Egyptian obelisk. If you're up for it, be sure to give yourself extra time to stroll and hike through these beautiful gardens, just like Eleonora would have. Our seventh site to visit is the Bargello Museum. Set in one of the oldest buildings in Florence that dates back to 1255. The museum houses a large collection of bronze sculptures owned by the Medici family, from Lorenzo the Magnificent to the last Duke. Inside, you'll find Donatello's bronze statue of David, commissioned by Cosimo de' Medici the Elder in the 1440s. This statue used to be displayed at the center of the courtyard of the Medici Palace, where Lorenzo and his family lived. There's also several sculptures of the Medici family members that can be seen here as well. Now, here's some extra places to stop by when in Florence to complete your Medici tour. Palazzo Pazzi. This was the home of the Pazzi family, who were behind the Pazzi conspiracy, a plot to assassinate Lorenzo and Giuliano de' Medici. Jacopo Pazzi commissioned the home in 1458, and they occupied the home until it was confiscated by the Medici after the Pazzi conspiracy and death of Jacopo. The palazzo is not open to visitors. However, with it being right in the heart of the city, it's worth taking a look at its Renaissance-style facade and even taking a peek inside to catch the large Pazzi crest when the doors are open. I also recommend stopping by the convent of San Marco. This building was rebuilt with funding by Cosimo de' Medici in 1437, and he had his own cell where he would go and pray. It was also the home to Savonarola, the man who had a big hand in the exile of Lorenzo de' Medici and his family. We've made it to our last spot on the list, and it's the Santa Maria Novella Pharmacy, the oldest apothecary in Florence, dating back to 1221. Here you'll find perfumes, soaps, candles, and so much more. Their oldest fragrance is the Queen's Water, or the Water of the Queen, named after Catherine de' Medici, who became Queen of France. She commissioned her own scent and took her own perfumer from Santa Maria Novella to France, spreading the art of perfume across the world. Let me know in the comments which locations you're looking forward to visiting when in Florence. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please be sure to give it a thumbs up if you did, and share this video with anyone you know who might be taking a trip to Florence soon. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.